Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jenna Ryan Show. I am here today with a very special guest, and I'm so glad that you are here. You can find us on YouTube at Jenna Ryan Show, Twitter at Jenna Ryan Show, and also Rumble, Jenna Ryan. And I am so excited to have this wonderful discussion today with Joseph Thomas. He is a J6 defendant, and he is a husband and a father of four, as well as an independent minister and owner of Christian Dog Rescue in college. Christian Dog Rescue in college, Joe studied anthropology, Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. He is a Navy vet with tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. Joe went to the Capitol on January 6th, 2021, to follow his oath by protecting the Constitution and innocent civilians. The politically weaponized situation took him to trial on May 5th to defend himself against 12 federal charges for using his First Amendment rights. He was found guilty by what he considers to be a biased DC judge of 7 charges, not guilty of 3 and 2, and 2 were dismissed as a mistrial. So this is a very serious interview that we're having today. I just wanted to let everybody know that this is a censored situation. We're doing this so that it's safe for YouTube, so that it will be seen by more people. And if we have to skip over some parts, that you can just fill in the blanks yourself. And I'm so happy to have Joseph with us today. Another thing about Joseph, I just want to let you know, is that he is the creator of the Sing for Freedom movement, which is where they sing every evening the national anthem with all of the political prisoners in the DC Gulag and all around the country. So welcome, Joseph.
Thank you, Miss Ryan. Always a pleasure to be here, and I certainly am honored to be on your show, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to be smiling, but I'm not happy about your situation, but I like to smile just to keep things on the light and bright side. This is a very serious situation that you're dealing with. So in no way am I happy about it. I'm very, very disturbed. And I want you to know that we really care about you and we are following what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. And, I might be staring the beast in the face right now, but I'm doing it with a smile on my face, too, because I see the hand of God at work and everything that's happening. And he tells us to take it all with joy. So even as I am walking through the fire, I do it with a smile on my face because my God is a mighty God.
Amen. And that is the truth. We're in the fire and we're refined in the fire. No matter what we go through, we know he is with us. So tell me where you are. Last time we talked, you were just getting out of trial, driving back from DC. So what happened at trial?
Absolutely. So to take a little step back from there,
Yeah, go for it.
May 2021, I was arrested by an FBI counterterrorism SWAT team because of my presence at the Capitol on January 6th. I did not go into the building. I did not destroy anything. I did not attack anybody. I did not steal anything. I was there. I videotaped. I used my voice, and I did try to protect some people that were being harmed by the police. And I also did try to help protect the police while I was there as well. But despite all that, I was hit with 10 federal charges initially. And then whenever I rejected their plea deal, they hit me with an additional 2 charges of alleged assault, which, obviously that never happened. And so I had a total of 12 charges. I was facing over 30 years in prison.
Wow.
And whenever you and I had spoken, you're right, I was just driving back after my trial, and I was very happy because of the victory that I felt that I had won. It was by far the best verdict of any January 6th defendant that's gone to trial so far.
Awesome.
And I had, more charges than most that have actually gone to trial. And it was truly an honor to have you on my show as well. And, quick little plug, make sure to check out Freedom Unchained. You can hear Miss Jenna Ryan give her story and share a piece of her heart with the rest of America. And it was truly a wonderful interview, and I was honored to have that happen. But during my trial, I was found guilty. Well, actually, let me say I was found not guilty of the government's narrative.
Okay.
They say everybody that went to January 6th were violent extremists, hell bent on interrupting the election process. And
Right.
I was found not guilty of violence, and I was found not guilty of trying to interrupt the election process,
Thank
which
God.
is huge. Yes, that is a wonderful victory. I had two other charges that were dismissed because of mistrial,
Okay.
and unfortunately, I was found guilty by a DC jury of 7 charges. Now, in the
Sorry.
intro, you said that a biased judge. That might have been a typo on my part. It was the jury, I believe, was biased, but I
Okay.
have to, I actually have to give a hat tip to my judge. I had
Okay.
Miss Dabney Friedrich, and
Okay.
when I first went into trial, it was extremely hostile. She even
Wow.
threatened to throw my attorneys in jail because they filed a motion for a First Amendment argument in my defense, and um, she threatened them with contempt charges and sanctions and all kinds of craziness. But
Wow.
as the trial went on, her tone completely changed to the point where she even looked at the government and said, "You have not proven your case." And
Wow.
she actually arguing against the government on my behalf. She did a really good job in helping to protect my rights.
Thank God.
There's a few things that I don't agree with that went on in trial, but I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how the whole federal game works out, but I had an amazing legal team. It was John Pierce Law
Love
that,
him.
yeah, they went above and beyond, and we gave the government a fight for their life. We made them work for their money. My trial was supposed to only be 1 week. It lasted for 3 weeks, and I walked out with a big, big victory. And my sentencing will come up in a couple months. I think September 6th is when my sentencing will come through. But before
Okay.
then, there are several things that we can do to try to minimize my sentencing as much as possible. And then after that, of course, the appeals process.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So you were found guilty. And first of all, I just want to announce to the world that I disagree with the narrative that has been put out by the media and by the government. It wasn't what they made it out to be, in my opinion. We were there. We were physically there. Only the people that were really there are going to know, because so many of the clips were played over and over. And so, what did they have? What did they actually find you guilty of doing?
Okay, so 100% by the way with what you're saying. Only people that were there will truly know what happened that day. And myself, I witnessed police brutality. I witnessed a little bit of violence from the protesters, but it was really nothing more than just pushing and shoving.
Right.
But I saw the police using tear gas and pepper spray, pepper balls, and like beating elderly men, women, and children, um,
Wow.
tear gassing women and children, and everybody else that was there. And it was not like the news shows it, though. It wasn't that bad from the protesters. The police got a little out of hand, but the
Wow.
media keeps playing the same 6, 7, 8 videos over and over and over again.
Right.
And by the time I even showed up, all of that stuff had already been over. I didn't even get to the Capitol steps until like 3:30 in the afternoon. But
Wow.
I was found guilty of civil disorder, which,
Okay.
according to the government, is a felony.
Wow.
Um, I was found guilty of misdemeanor of entering and remaining in restricted grounds. I was found guilty of a misdemeanor disorderly conduct. And then I was found guilty of 4 felonies, but um, the wording in the felonies is tricky, right?
Okay.
It's assaulting, obstructing, impeding, or interfering with certain officers.
Wow.
So, according to that statute, punching an officer in the face or just standing in his way
Okay.
they hold the same weight. They both are punishable up to a maximum of 8 years in prison.
Oh my goodness.
And the reason I say it's tricky because the media still runs saying, "Oh, he was found guilty of assault," but they leave out the fact that I was found not guilty of violence.
Okay.
So I was really found guilty of standing in the officer's way. I was
Okay.
found guilty of impeding them or interfering with them. Right? I was
Big
not
difference.
violent. Right? I was not violent whatsoever. And one of the charges that was dismissed by a mistrial was an alleged assault on an officer who lied on the stand. He said that he knew 100% that I was the one that knocked him over. Well, my
Wow.
defense team showed video that it was actually not him, or it was not me that knocked him over. It was somebody else. And then the government changed their story mid-stride and said, well, that's not when the assault happened. It happened later on, but we just don't have video of it.
Wow.
And so that confused the judge, the courts, the jury. Like nobody really had any idea what the government was talking about because they switched everything last second. So it ended up getting dismissed as a mistrial because they really could not pinpoint the charge.
Wow.
Now, in that, there's the moment that that officer did get knocked down by another person who's wearing like a blue shirt.
Right.
He got up off the ground and charged an elderly man who was laying on the ground already and started beating him in the head with a nightstick. At
Okay.
that point,
The officer. Okay.
yeah, the officer started beating this elderly man in the head with a baton. And so
Wow.
I put my body between him and the older guy and kind of put my forearm against his shield. And I said, let him up, let him up, let him up. Because that's lethal force. To hit somebody in the head with a baton by their policy and by DC law is lethal force. An elderly man, unarmed, laying on the ground is not a threat. So
No.
that was completely uncalled for.
Okay.
And the government tried to say, well, he assaulted him here as well. And the judge did say, well, he has the right to defend himself. He has the right to defend others. And
Right.
that was unlawful use of force by that officer. So I did. I kind of put my body between them and I had my back to the police and was telling everybody kind of keep distance between each other. And they started hitting me in the back and in the head and everything else with their nightsticks as well until I could get that older guy out of there. And then I kind of pushed a line in between the officers and the protesters. And you can see on video, I'm actually shoving protesters away from the police and was
Wow.
kind of pushing myself in between them all to make space, to create a gap.
Okay.
And so this is the government's narrative that, oh, look how violent he is. But in actuality, I was trying to de-escalate the situation because people were clashing, they're pushing against each other, whatever.
Wow.
So, the charges sound bad, but
Sounds menacing. Right.
in reality, I was found not guilty of any violence. I was trying to help protect the life of an elderly man. When he got up, he was bleeding from the head and it was bad.
Wow. Terrible.
And, I was found not guilty of the government's narrative. I see that as a great victory. No matter how many guilty
Yay.
charges are thrown at me, like that is great to show that the government's narrative does not apply to every person at January 6th. And we've helped set precedent for every other defendant going in. And we've also helped set up some appeals for other defendants that have already been convicted for certain charges.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's good. Good for you. Good for you. John Pierce did a great job for you.
Oh, he's absolutely amazing. John Pierce, Roger Roots, and then their paralegal, M. Lambert. She was absolutely integral to their team because, if I may tell a quick story.
Yes.
One of the officers, last name of Campanelli, he was on the stand. I didn't have any charges from him. Like they just brought him in as a witness because him and I did have a verbal interaction.
Okay.
And there was a point when I was at the Capitol that another protester handed me a knife and said, hey, you should cut those zip ties. Herd mentality, not thinking or whatever. I'm like, yeah, sure. And I took the knife and I'm holding it. And I did lean down like I was about to cut the zip ties. And then
What zip
Campanelli.
tie? Where was the zip tie?
Oh, I'm sorry. So there were some bleachers on the Upper West Terrace that they had set up for the inauguration. We were underneath of those bleachers, and there was like a tarp that went around the bottom of those bleachers, kind of like a skirting.
Okay.
And there's big holes that had already been cut into that tarp. And I was inside the bleacher area. The cops are on the other side, and the outside of the bleachers. We're talking to each other through those holes.
Oh.
And when Campanelli saw me that I had a knife, he ran up and kind of yelled at me, said, hey, put that knife away.
Wow.
And then my brain clicked back and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why do I have this? I don't want it. And so I handed the knife back to the guy.
Who gave you this knife?
Just another protester. I don't know who he was.
Do we know if it's an agitator or somebody that was?
Well, I have my theories, but I don't know anything definitive. We see who he is on video. He has not been arrested or charged. So,
okay.
You can take with that what you like. But
right.
I handed the knife back to him, and then I looked at Campanelli and said, hey, man, no violence.
Absolutely.
And that was my mantra, like the whole day, no violence, no violence.
Okay.
Well, when he was on the stand testifying about that interaction that him and I had, the government like, oh, look, he has a knife and he's so bad and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
And Campanelli, the officer, said that he could have charged me for destruction of property because they suspected that I was the one that cut the holes in the tarp. Now,
Okay.
these holes, mind you, are like 40, 50 feet long,
Okay.
about 6 feet high. And whenever my defense team, Roger Roots is actually the one that did his cross-examination, he
Okay.
goes up and asks him, he says, well, did you see Mr. Thomas cause any damage? And he says, well, no, I did not. And then he says, well, wouldn't you have to have probable cause to arrest him for property damage?
Right.
And he was like, well, I mean, okay, yeah, I guess so. So I guess I couldn't have arrested him, whatever. And so
Okay.
Roots asked him, I was like, well, what brought you down there? Why were you even there by the bleachers? And Campanelli said something like, well, we saw some individuals cutting the tarp.
Oh,
And he said, well, do you know who those individuals were? And
okay.
Campanelli said, no, I do not. And he says, okay, well, let's show some video. And so my attorney rolls this video and pauses it right at the beginning and says, do you know what this is? And he says, yes, body worn camera footage. He says, do you know who this officer is shown in the footage? Right. And Campanelli looks at it and he says, that's me. And he says, okay, so that's you right there. And he says, yes. He says, all right, let's continue this footage. As they let the video roll on, you see Campanelli come down the stairs off the bleachers, from the top of the bleachers down, and he takes out a big knife and starts cutting giant holes in the tarp.
Are you kidding me?
So the individuals that he saw cutting the tarp was him.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, what a good catch.
Absolutely. And M. Lambert, the paralegal, found that on a whim. She's seen so much footage from every other case and all the research that they've been doing. As soon as he said that, it clicked in her mind like, hey, I've seen this. And so she searched it up right there in the courtroom, found it out of the thousands of hours of body cam footage that they have, pulled it up and said, boom, here it is. Caught him red-handed lying on the stand. And
Oh my word.
the big question is, how many other January 6th defendants have been charged, found guilty, or have to pay restitution because of those holes that were cut by that cop? And now every person that has ever gotten in trouble for that can appeal that because it was found that they are not the ones that did the damage, that it was Campanelli and a couple other officers.
So Campanelli literally accused you of doing something that he himself did.
Absolutely. And he got caught.
And he got caught right there in Washington, D.C., in the swamp. He got caught. Congratulations. That's a God thing. Thanks to that paralegal.
Amen. Yeah, M. Lambert is a force to be reckoned with in that courtroom for sure.
Wow.
But the prosecutors, they had two prosecutors on my case, along with two FBI agents, which is really unheard of because,
Yeah.
for like the Proud Boys trial or for other like multiple co-defendant type of trials, they would
Right.
have two prosecutors, two FBI agents. Typically, if there's just one defendant, they have one prosecutor, one FBI agent, but they call a case agent. But
Exactly.
they brought in the big guns for mine,
Wow.
and we completely destroyed their narrative. God was working his hand in that courtroom on a daily basis, and it was beautiful to see. Even at one point, the female prosecutor, Miss Samantha Miller, she had flown her mom down from Boston or Baltimore or something like that to like watch this groundbreaking case she was involved in.
Mm.
And after we destroyed pretty much their entire narrative, she went out into the hallway and was crying into the shoulder of her mother because she realized that her case is pretty much lost.
I do not
Every
feel sorry for her.
No, no, I don't either.
The
Um,
hell we have gone through, and that's wonderful. But I think that there's so many of those things that we could find if we had time and ability and manpower and all the tech. I mean, we don't have all the footage from that day. I'm sure there's a lot of footage that would help a lot of people.
Absolutely. And we actually well, I'll just say any day that you can make the government cry, it's a good day because they're trying to destroy my life, and instead we destroyed their narrative. And we actually caught them withholding evidence. They withheld FBI 302s of the witnesses on their side that testified until after they were already on the stand. And so we didn't have a chance to even see any of the exculpatory evidence that was in those interviews before they testified.
Wow.
And those are Brady's violations, and then there's a thing called a Jinx violation, which the FBI, when they do those interviews, is supposed to provide certain information, and they didn't provide any of it. But we also caught them coaching and tampering with the witnesses before they testified out in the hallway outside the courtroom.
Oh my
One
heavens.
one officer said to the like, I don't know if he said it to the prosecutor or said it to somebody else that was out there. He says, I don't recognize this guy, because he saw me walking up and down the hallway and in the courtroom. He says, I don't recognize him. And they said, well, go home and watch the footage again so that you can point him out, because you're not going to testify today, you'll testify tomorrow. So go and watch the footage so that way you can point him out. And so that right there, that's coaching the witness. If he didn't recognize who I was, that's exculpatory in itself.
Right.
And so they're telling him to go in there so that he can at least say, oh yeah, it was definitely him, I remember him. And
Sloppy work.
and you talk about God working his hand in the court. One of the officers actually said that he did not recognize me, and it wasn't that one, it was another one that I was accused of assaulting. And they asked him, like, they watched the video and they said, this gentleman here, did you perceive him as a threat? Do you think he was trying to hurt you? Or what were you perceiving that he was trying to do? And he was like, no, I didn't see him as a threat at all. He didn't hurt me, he wasn't trying to hurt me. And then
Oh my gosh.
they had me stand up in the courtroom, and my attorney, Roger Roots, he was doing the questioning. He points me out and he says, do you recognize this gentleman here? And he looks at me and he goes, no, I don't think I've ever seen him before in my life.
Woo.
I was still found guilty of that assault, though. Well, the impeding charge of that, because it's
Well,
all
then
the
you're
same.
going to get off.
Hopefully, that's what appeals are for.
That's what appeals are for. But
Yep.
that just kind of shows you the whole thing was ramrod. It was all, lies come out in the end. And ultimately, a lie is not going to hold up in a court of law. And in this case, it was even in the biased area that we believe, I don't know for sure, but I think it's pretty biased due to media coverage. Even before I talked to you, Joseph, I'm one of the ones who've been smeared in the media. Yet I looked at your stuff and you look like this horrible person in all of the media. But guess what? There won't be any headlines that say Joseph Thomas did this and that, anything good about you. It's only the negative, and it's only the lies or their narrative. And that kind of stuff can really taint a jury that's already politically opposed, and we're already polarized. And, it's just really it's a trap. It's a wicked trap of the enemy. It's a scheme. And so you went in there and y'all did some great work, and they got caught in their own trap.
It was a beautiful thing to see, and God is great. We prayed every day. Right outside the courthouse, they have what's called a David's tent. It's a thing that they have set up all across the country, but there in DC, they have a tent right behind the courtroom that they call a 24-hour love song to Jesus. And they have a stage set up inside the tent, a bunch of lawn chairs. People can come in and sit down and pray and meditate on godly things. And they have somebody up on stage either praying or singing, playing music, gospel music, of course, or reading out of scripture. And it's all day, every day. And every chance that I got, I'd go out behind the courthouse and just take a moment to reflect of everything that I'd seen. I'd go and sit in the David's tent, or I would, hang out with some of my friends that had come to watch the court hearings, which I'm truly blessed to have several patriotic friends that were there in the courthouse with me every single day to show their support.
Praise
And
God.
it was beautiful. And we would all go in the tent together and just kind of pray together. And I prayed on a daily basis. I prayed that, God would let justice prevail, that he would soften the heart of the judge, which happened, because she went from being extremely hostile to extremely helpful. I prayed that he would soften the heart of the jury, and no matter how badly they wanted to fry me, they still found me unanimously not guilty of the 3 most important charges. And then 4 got dismissed. Like, I would pray that he would soften the hearts of the prosecutor. And maybe I'm a little ornery, I'm a little rambunctious sometimes. So every day I was in court, I would tell the prosecutors, good morning, Miss Miller. Good morning, Mr. McCauley. Thank you. I even at one point looked at him and said, hey, I know you're trying to prosecute me, but I still appreciate your service, and that
I can see you doing that.
Yeah, that really got under their skin. They hated it, absolutely hated it. But I sat there with a smile on my face the entire time I was in court. Even when I stood up and they were reading the verdict of, guilty, guilty, guilty. Hearing the not guilties was great, but I mean, hearing the word guilty really just makes your heart sink.
I can't
But I
imagine.
stood there I stood there with the power of God and had a smile on my face, and I took it all with joy. I thanked the jury, I thanked the judge and everybody. And even when I was arrested by the FBI back in May of 2021, I thanked all of the arresting officers for their service, because I
Wow.
understand that they're all just Americans. They're doing their job. After they got the guns out of my face and all the flashbangs and stuff went off, all the craziness, they treated me with respect and decency. I looked at one of the officers and I didn't say much because I know better, but I did look at him and say, listen, I don't care what they say. I love my country. And he smiled and he says, I don't doubt that one bit, you
Amen.
know? And so it was great to be able to see the human side of the quote unquote beast that was trying to destroy me, and to
Yeah,
let them know that I can meet their hatred with love.
that's good. That's wonderful. And that's what got you cleared of all those charges that you got cleared of. But you still ended up getting charged with impeding an
Yeah.
officer, which is a felony. What is the sentencing guidelines on that?
Yeah. So it's a maximum of 8 years. I don't know what the minimums or the possible fines or whatever are on those, but I was found guilty of 4 of those. One of which being the officer that said I was no threat and he didn't even recognize me. Um, which I think when it comes down to sentencing, the fact that it's the non-violent elements of those charges, that it's going to help quite a bit.
Yeah.
The civil disorder, I think, is a maximum of 5 years,
Okay.
and the misdemeanors are maybe like 6 months apiece, probation, fines, whatever. I'm really not worried about my sentencing, and the reason I say that, and I know you know this because I've told you before, but whatever happens is God's plan.
Right.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they got thrown in the furnace because they would not bow to an evil king. Well, I'm not going to
Yeah.
bow to tyranny.
Right.
That's our story right now with America. We cannot bow to tyranny. Even
Right.
if we get thrown in the fire, God will be there with us and we will walk out unharmed, unsinged, unscathed. We're not even going to smell like the smoke of the flames, because God is great and we're going to come out of this okay. We're going to restore our nation. It's going to happen because we're American.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe that. I believe that victory is ours in Christ Jesus. And I just claim victory for our nation, and that every single lie will be exposed and every trap will be released in the name of Jesus. And I proclaim that. And I feel that in my bones. They're not going to do this to us, beautiful Christian lovers, patriots of America. In your case, you're a veteran who has served our country honorably, and you're a father of 4. Tell me about your 4 children.
Oh man. So they are the reason that I wake up in the morning, and they are the reason I lose sleep at night, because they are just truly a blessing. But I mean, we all know how kids can be. Parents, they worry, and kids do things that we are like, why? Why would you do that?
Right.
But I have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. My oldest son, he's 20. He's in the Navy, doing an amazing. He followed in my footsteps, as well as my wife. My wife was in the Navy as well, and
Wow.
yeah, followed in our footsteps, and is making us very proud. He actually just got married and made me a grandpa. Like, this is really weird. Yeah,
Congratulations.
really weird to say though. Like, I'm only 40 and I'm a granddad already.
Wow.
Um, yeah, but it's great. And I have an 18-year-old daughter who is just my little princess still, like no matter what. And sometimes I think she's going to be the death of me, but she's a spitting image of me. Definitely a lot prettier than I am. Thank goodness she got her mother's looks. But
Oh,
she's very patriotic, just a spitting image of a true patriotic Christian American. I have a 12-year-old daughter who is extremely artistic and smart. Like, she likes to do coding, and just I can't even say enough good things about her. She builds robots for fun, and she'll come out of her room just covered head to toe in paint because she's very artistic, and just is always doing something to better herself and to make the world a prettier place. She's the one that got me the Hello Kitty pajama bottoms for
oh.
Father's Day. He says, "Oh, Dad, we're twins now. You have to wear them." The little girl asks you to do something, you don't say no.
No,
And
you got to do it.
then I have a 9-year-old boy who is just a bull in a china shop, and
Wow.
he likes to go outside and build fires and do the old farm boy camping thing. And he's going to be playing football here in the next month or so, whenever their training camp starts up. And they're truly a blessing. And my wife, I've been with her for almost 15. Well, I've been married for almost 15 years, and she's been by my side every step of the way. And It's truly great because I know a lot of J6 defendants don't have that.
No.
And that's one reason that I've been so public and been out front doing the Sing for Freedom thing that you had mentioned in the beginning.
Yes.
Um, I heard whenever I was arrested, I was awarded bond. And I had heard the conditions that a lot of the J6 defendants were being held in prison for misdemeanors and little things. And
Mhm.
here I am with a handful of felonies, and I get to go home to my family. And so I asked God, I was like, you gave me a gift of freedom. What can
Wow.
I do? What can I do with it?
Yeah.
And when I asked that, I heard a recording come out of the DC jail of the inmates singing the national anthem. And
Yes.
it became a routine. They do it every night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
That moved me in a way that only God can. And he said, get involved. And so I went out on my porch and I started singing with them every night. And I would record it, post it online, or, you know, sometimes I wouldn't record it. I didn't know what to do. And then my neighbor came over and asked me, like, hey, I hear you singing the anthem every night. What are you doing? Getting ready for a ball game or something? And I laughed and I was like, no, my government thinks I'm a terrorist. And I explained the whole situation. And she just kind of stayed silent and walked away.
Mm.
And so I'm standing there like, great. Now she thinks I'm a nut job.
Right.
Well, a couple nights later, as I'm out on my porch again singing the anthem, I heard her and her young son, I don't know, maybe like 12, 13 years old, out on the porch and started singing with me.
You made me cry. That's so sweet.
That hit me right there. And then
Okay.
God spoke to my heart and he said, get America involved. Because I wanted the guys in the jail to feel what I felt, that I wasn't alone, that somebody here in real life cares.
Right.
So I pushed that online with the Sing for Freedom. It's sing the number 4 freedom. Post
Uh-huh.
a video of you singing the national anthem online with that hashtag of sing the number 4 freedom. And it does several things. It is a peaceful protest.
Okay.
It is a way to revitalize patriotism. It is a way
Yes.
to bring awareness to what is going on in our justice system, to bring
Right.
awareness to what's going on with the guys that are locked up in the jails, with the horrible conditions in which they're being held in. But more importantly, and my favorite part, is that it gives the family, the inmates, the defendants hope to know that an entire nation stands behind them, that
Yes.
they're not alone in this fight.
No.
And it, as disparaging as it may seem, that we are all in this together and that we stand in solidarity with them. And it has grown to be a beautiful thing. It's a national campaign that is actually making an international difference. I
Yeah.
have people sending in videos from Japan, even of them singing the American national anthem. I have videos that are sent across the internet every single day of hundreds of patriots of singing the anthem. We've um, interrupted Trump at 2 of his rallies
Wow.
while he was up there speaking, and he would stop and let people do it. And he even addressed what it was, saying, like, this is a protest for the conditions of what's going on and the condition of our country, and that it was beautiful. And then he even got involved in creating the Justice for All song, which was like #1 on the Apple list for a while,
Yeah.
of the guys in the jail singing the anthem intertwined with Donald Trump reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. And now Ted Nugent does it at all of his concerts, and anytime he plays in public, he dedicates a national anthem to the J6ers.
Yeah.
And it's great. I've started a website to kind of be a central hub for ways that people can get involved and help. If they want to donate to the J6ers, I have a long list of all of their GiveSendGos, which goes directly to them. We don't handle any funds. I don't touch money. That's not my thing. I
Right.
just am the guy that can point them in the right direction and say, here's their fundraiser. If you want to help, click that button. It'll go directly to them. We have groups that are all listed in there that if anybody wants to get like boots on the ground and actually get involved, and I make sure to vet all of those groups to make sure they're not doing anything shady or whatever. Like all of their finances have to be completely public and transparent.
Yeah.
Everything has to go for what it's supposed to be. And it's great. And
So
a lot of celebrities have picked up on it and things of that sort, and it's making a difference. We've actually had a chance to sit down with Congress. We've had a chance to speak to people that can actually affect change. And it
yeah.
all started because some slack-jawed yokel from the hills of West Virginia said, you know what, I'm going to go on my porch and sing. I'm going to show
Yes.
love of nation despite the adversity that we face.
Right. So you felt a little bit guilty because you were actually let out on bond and you had the same charges of a lot of people that were. I wonder what the difference is. How
Yeah,
come you got out?
I actually have no idea. And I've struggled with that from day one. Many of us have kind of put our heads together, try to find some sort of rhyme or reason that some people are locked up, some people are not. I have no idea. I have not been able to pinpoint it, but I'm not really going to look a gift horse in the mouth either. You
No,
know,
no, no, no complaints.
yeah, yeah.
So
I thank God that I still have the chance. I, I'm human, right? Things get tough. The last
absolutely
2 years in this fight,
terrible.
knowing I have pending charges and I could potentially be going to prison. My kids have been attacked. They've been punished at school. My wife lost her job and hasn't been able to get another one back because of the stigma in the neighborhood of like, well, her husband's a criminal. And
Horrible.
I lost my job. I was able to get another job in the process and then lost that one too because of the court stuff.
Right.
And it's had its struggles and the stresses have hit us in ways that people would expect. My wife would come to me yelling and crying and screaming like, you destroyed our lives, why did you
Right.
even go there, and
It's
all
a
that stuff,
natural
which,
reaction and stuff.
yeah, yeah, the fear of the what if. But
Yes.
I have the ability to give my kids a hug and tell them it's going to be okay. I have the ability to look at my wife and say, look, we got this. No matter what, no matter how bad it's going to be, we got this. And the
Yeah.
guys that are locked up, and I say guys, but I mean guys and girls, because it's both,
Yeah.
any
Yes.
patriot, no matter what, they're trying to destroy us. They don't have that luxury. And so I promised myself, even when my wife was like, stop being public, stop talking about it, my attorneys would say, stop talking about it. God told me to talk about it. So I keep pushing. I kept fighting. And no matter what, I wasn't going to stop. And I
Right.
have something I want to say to that on that point. I
Okay.
have been loud and bold and proud about it for 2 years, screaming from the rooftops, pointing out the injustices, the corruption, the violation of due process rights, etc. And when I
Yeah.
went to court and they brought up all they possibly could, not once did they ever bring up anything that I said in this fight. They never brought up anything that I said during my podcast. They never said anything that I brought up anything that I said during any of the nightly videos that I've made for Sing for Freedom over the last 2 years,
Interesting.
because I did not say anything out of color. I don't make calls to violence. I just promote the constitutional process, and I was
Yes.
speaking truth. And they know what they're doing is corrupt. And so they did not want to even open that can of worms, because the moment they allowed me to mention their corruption, I was going to throw it in their face more than I already had, because I had been already, to a point where the judge even had to strike my comments from the record a couple times, because they're like, well, that's not really the question you asked. Or one of them, though, I did point out that tear gas is banned by the Geneva Convention. They're not allowed to use it in war, and I saw them use it on against unarmed Americans. And they're like,
Wow.
"Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! You can't really
Not
bring
allowed to
too
say the
much,
truth here.
right? Yeah, a little too much truth." And so they struck that comment from the record. Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, the jury still heard it, and it's fact. So I did nothing but speak truth, and we're on the right side of history. And
Yes,
so
we
they
are.
knew they could not use that against me, so they never even brought it up.
So basically, you were hunted down and treated like a terrorist because you were at the front line of a clash and you noticed you weren't trying. Were you trying to advance at that moment? Would you
Well,
say?
I won't say I was
Okay.
there, but the crowd did start to clash with the police, right?
Okay.
What
In your
I witnessed
Go ahead.
was the police brutalizing unarmed Americans, people that were defenseless, like the old guy laying on the ground. And I did step in and get a little physical, but all I did was put my forearm against his shield and was like, let him up, let him up,
Okay.
and I said it like 9, 10 times. But I didn't attack anybody. I didn't punch him, kick him, or none of that. Nothing violent. I just put my body between him and the old guy he was beating the snot out of, and like, hey, let him up. There's no reason for him to be hitting this guy in the head with a metal baton. Like the elderly man was bleeding. There's no rhyme or reason for that.
And you can't just sit by and watch that.
Right.
You couldn't just sit by and watch that. And so it's really a noble thing that you did. And we, when I was there, it was open. It felt like we were welcome. Did it feel like you were welcome where you were? And how did that go?
So yes and no. Like there was a police line, and
Okay.
the crowd would kind of push up against them, whatever, maybe trying to get through the line or whatever. I don't know what their motives were,
Right.
but the police told us, like, you can stand here, right?
Oh,
Like, they never told us that never once did anybody say you cannot be on Capitol grounds. If you're here, you're going to be arrested. Like,
right.
there were no restricted area signs, no trespassing signs, nothing like that. There were no announcements over a PA system or, the government was constantly saying in my trial that there were announcements, that there were police with
None.
bullhorns, but there was nothing. In every video that we showed, my attorneys would say, would you see any signs saying they can't be there in this video? Do you hear any announcements? Do you hear anything saying to anybody telling them to leave? Never once did that happen. Every video we showed, there was absolutely nothing that said that I would have known that I couldn't be there.
So
And
you didn't feel like you weren't supposed to be there, right?
absolutely. And
Like,
the charge of entering and remaining in a restricted area has a word in its law that says knowingly was in a restricted area. Well, I didn't know that I couldn't be there, so I should have been found not guilty of that because they did not prove that I had any way of knowing that I wasn't allowed to be there.
right.
But
And
unfortunately, it's DC jury. So
also, I mean, have you seen protests on television from the 60s and protests all over the world where there's a little clash, but you don't ever dream that every person that was involved in said crash is going to be arrested and thrown in prison for life, like they're trying to do?
absolutely. And some of the protesters, I'll be the first one to admit, some of the people there, they broke the law.
Yeah,
And we are the party of law and order. If they
right.
hit a cop with a flagpole, or if they, broke a window or whatever, they need to face justice. But it needs to be
Absolutely.
fair, true, and blind justice, right? They're trying to destroy somebody's life, completely overcharging them and whatever for
Yes.
minor offenses, you know. But if it was a fair thing, then we wouldn't really have that much of an issue. But I
Yeah.
see this honestly as a way that the left and the right can unify because we can fight for true justice in America, which is something that we truly need. And both sides have been arguing about this for a long time, that
Right.
we need fair justice and that we need prison reform, justice reform, etc. And when I was there, a protester swung a flag at a cop, and I was standing in the way, and I got hit with it. And then when he swung it a second time, I turned around and put my hand up and tried to deflect the flagpole from stopping him from hitting the police.
Yeah.
And when I deflected it, then he threw the flagpole over the police line.
Okay.
And I even brought that up when I was on the stand. I said I was trying to keep everybody safe. It wasn't just the protesters. I was trying to keep the police safe. Like, I even took a flagpole for them, to try to stop them from getting hit.
I
And
can see that.
the gentleman that was swinging that flagpole earlier in the day, him and I had a verbal altercation because there were like some pipes and things on the ground around that scaffolding, and he was trying to convince the crowd to use the pipes against Capitol Police.
Wow. Was
And
he arrested?
no, he's never
No,
been
he was
arrested.
not arrested. They
And
found evidence. The
yeah,
FBI agents were actually wearing, and actually, I heard somewhere that Capitol Police were in Trump outfits and actually participating.
yes, and I've seen video of an FBI agent picking up a bike rack and throwing it into the police line. I've seen footage of undercover officers in the crowd agitating the crowd, trying to tell them to push forward, telling them to go into the building, and this is like body worn camera footage of undercover officers. And the FBI, according to a congressional hearing that they had with the FBI whistleblowers, there's 11,000 hours of undercover footage of FBI agents in the crowd that are implicated in causing violence, creating, instigating the crowd into doing things. And when I confronted the gentleman trying to tell the crowd to use pipes, his partner is what I'll call him because they were dressed the same, they had the same type of eyeglasses on, and etc. I was preaching no violence, no violence, and he said, "What do you mean no violence? How do you expect to get your country back?" And I said, "The constitutional process, buddy, the same way we always do." And
Wow.
him and I kind of argued back and forth about it. But then another person there with them wanted to fist fight me because I was preaching no violence and, no violence. So I didn't fight him. But that's
Hmm.
what we were dealing with. The cops were instigating things, people in the crowd were instigating things, but a majority of the people of January 6th were just innocent bystanders reacting to the abuses that they were receiving.
Wow. Okay. And so So now you have, so all of that happened, and you know, now you have to go to sentencing. Have they told you what they want, what the state want, or the what they want? Well, first of all, let me, before I go there, let me just say it's a two-tier justice system. It's like, what do you have to say about that? That, we have been overly charged, and also we've been slung through the mud, turned into a political pariahs, and in a political game to turn people against us and to make conservatives look bad, and to advance their objective, and give them more power, and also to serve as an example for anyone who stands up for their rights, and protests, make us afraid of being protesting and things. So what do you have to say about the two-tier justice system?
Well, I would say that Congress has the power of the purse, and it's not Republicans versus Democrat. It's not left versus right. This is good versus evil. And
Right.
so all of these Republican senators and Congress members and government officials that are saying, oh, poor J6ers, we need to release the camera footage, or we need to do this, we need to do that. Quite frankly, they're just looking for a good photo op, and they're running their mouth, but they're not actually following it up with any action, because to make all of this stop, all they have to do is simply defund the prosecution of January 6th inmates. They're still arresting people.
They
They're
are.
over they're
Oh,
over 1,100 arrests now, and they're planning on coming after at least 1,000 more.
why?
And
I
so
mean, we are like, of all people on earth, we're the least, there's no criminal backgrounds. We are the least likely to do anything, but they're doing this to make us, to take away our country, to take away our rights and freedom. I'm so mad about that.
they went after those that were willing to speak up first, and then
Yeah,
they did it in such a way that it made the rest of America afraid to speak up at all.
right.
January 6th was like the burning of the Reichstag in 1930s Berlin. It
Right.
silenced the rest of society, afraid to speak up. And then they can demonize, vilify us, and label us as an enemy, and then start coming after us one by one. And that's why the majority of those that have been arrested are veterans. 72% of January 6 defendants are veterans, those that have sworn to protect and defend the Constitution. They swore an oath to that.
Our
And
most
many,
beautiful people, they're getting them. They're going and they're picking them off one by one. And these people have to live in fear, not knowing, the mothers, I'm single. I'm just a single lady. And they came after me. And it was hell, complete hell. I was one of the first people to be arrested. I can't tell you the anguish of having the United States against your name, Joseph Thomas. That is huge. And then on top of that, you've got the media, billion-dollar corporations using all their power to pull you down. And you have to stand, and all you really have is your Jesus, your God, that is much more powerful than these forces. And so that's why it's so important that we have these conversations and we get to know you as a person rather than a headline on the news. Because if you look you up, it's atrocious what they do to us. They did the same thing to me. I look me up, I'm like, ooh, I don't like who they made me. I'm not that person. Who are you talking about? That's you. That's your projection. They're projecting their wrongs onto innocent people. And so, yes, some people did commit violence, and definitely people deserve punishment. I think personally a ticket would have sufficed. I think I would have learned my lesson. If you have a setup and I walk into it, okay, give me a ticket. But prison time, really? No. That was my thought about it.
no, absolutely, and I'm 100% there with you. They have made these arrests and all of these cases as scary and as public as possible.
Yeah,
There's even been
sure.
stories of January 6th defendants that have agreed to surrender themselves willingly. And as they're driving to the FBI field office to turn themselves in, the
Right.
FBI swoops in, surrounds their car, and arrests them in the most violent and public way possible, so that everybody and their brothers looking out their windows, oh, what's going on over here? And then they see in the news another violent extremist arrested by the FBI. Like the guy was on the phone with the FBI and his attorney saying, hey, I'm on my way now. I'm almost to the parking lot. And right there outside of the parking lot of the FBI field office for him to turn himself in, they swooped in, flashbang grenades, and the whole deal. They blocked off the whole area, the roads. They had helicopters in the air. There's no need for that whatsoever. They do it. And as a matter of fact, in the specific January 6th defendant story, the agent looked at him and says, or because he said, you didn't need to do this. I was on my way to turn myself in. And the field agent said, Washington told us to do it this way.
I don't
They
care.
they want it to be public. They want it to be scary for the rest of society because they're trying to silence the majority. Because we Americans, we the people, that we don't have the microphone of the talking heads on TV. So they
Right.
make it seem like we're some small fringe, but we're not. We are the majority of America.
Yes,
And
sir.
that terrifies them because we are the party of law and order. And I wholeheartedly believe that they wanted a bloodbath that day, but because we are so calm, cool, and collected, we didn't give it to them. So they have to try to fabricate it as much as they possibly can.
You are so right. They already had the stories written on the next day that so many police officers were, all that horrible things that they had written about us that weren't true. And I think you're very right. And I think that I I'm not falling for this excuse that the FBI agents around now, in the beginning I thought, well, the FBI agents are just doing their job. They're following Washington. I don't care. If you even keep a job at that place at this point, after what they've done, I'm like, you guys are messed up. I mean, I'm so mad about what they've done. And I know they're just innocent Americans, and you probably disagree with me, but I'm just mad that they can even have anybody work for them. And so that is a huge problem. It's the biggest problem, I think, in our nation because, if they're not stopped, they're just, we're wise to them. And it's just like a gigantic narcissist doing a smear campaign in order to create their own narrative and in order to tear down their opposition, the person that they're threatened by. And so they're threatened by Americans who are willing to take a stand. And in order to stop you, they have to smear you so that you won't get any support, so that you will be cut off. Like, if you're going to a pack of wolves, they're going to try to get that. They're not going to go after the prey with the group. They're going to try to get the prey off to the side all by themselves where they have no defense. Then they destroy one at a time. So what they're doing by ostracizing us from society, using the media as the medium to make us look horrible, is they're just trying to destroy us. And when they destroy one of us, it's destroying all of us. And we need to come together as a people and support the J6 victims, because that's what I call us. We are victims of abuse. We have been abused and abused and abused, and we don't deserve it. And there's a lot of people that have it a lot worse than us. You have way worse than me, but still all of us are in pain. And even watching others be in pain is actually, it's painful to watch.
Well, my mama told me I could be anything I wanted to be when I grew up, so I decided to be stubborn, and I wasn't going to go down without a fight. And it has pretty much bankrupted me. The lawyers, they're an amazing legal team,
Yeah.
but they just have to get paid for the hard work that they do. And I mean,
Right.
right now, I've paid several thousands of dollars, I still owe them like $100,000, and that does not include however much I'm going to need for the appeals process. But I'm going to fight with every breath that I have. I do have a GiveSendGo out there. If I
Yeah.
could drop that, it's GiveSendGo.com/Pi and on legal fees. I'm sure you'll put it in your description
I'll put it
box.
in the description box.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you don't want to help me because I got a face for radio, I certainly understand. But there's a lot of other January 6th defendants that really need their help as well. And you can find all of their GiveSendGo fundraisers on my website, which is sing4freedom.us.
Okay.
It's not .com because I ain't a company. It's not .org because I'm not very organized, but I am an American. So singforfreedom.us is the place that patriots need to go to find out a way that they can help and get involved in this fight. And it is unfortunate what is happening to Americans, but our country is much greater than a single administration. We have
Yes.
pulled through much worse. And
Yes.
like the 60s, like you had mentioned before, during the civil rights movement, people back then were smeared, vilified, demonized. They were arrested, they were attacked. Some of them were killed, their houses were burnt down, and they were seen as the enemies of the state trying to destroy democracy. But
Right.
today, we look back on them now with respect and reverence because they stood up in the face of tyranny and fought for human rights. and they were peaceful protesters just having a sit-in or sitting around and praying or marching across the bridge, going to school board meetings saying that they should, break segregation and start bringing, all people in under the public school umbrella.
Right.
And what happened to them back then is awful, but we now look back on them as heroes. And this is the time that we face today, standing up for fair, true, and elections,
Yeah.
standing up for, justice reform, prison reform, basic due process rights. It doesn't
Yes.
matter what side of the aisle you're on.
No,
Everybody deserves true justice.
absolutely. And so now you have to go and be sentenced, and you don't know what they're going to do yet. What do you want? Or do you just kind of leaving that to God?
I'm wholeheartedly handing it to God. Whatever happens, happens. I'm pretty sure I'll get at least less than 5 years, but I've said it from day one, and I'll always say it. Even if they bury me under the prison, my voice will echo through those hallways, and my voice will haunt the communists that want to destroy our country. Because every time any politician or any elected official hears the national anthem, they're going to lose sleep at night knowing that that is a protest for their inaction. And it's all up to you. It's up to our country. It's we, the people, that can make that change. So get
Yes.
involved, use your voice. It doesn't take much to just stand up and say, enough is enough. We will not consent. We do not comply. And we'll make it through this. But we have to do something now.
Your children need a father. And I think it's a travesty, and it really hurts me. I don't want to see you spend any time. I hope that, if it does have to be something that is the minimal time possible. And I learned a lot in my 60 days in prison, and it's really sucks, but I learned a lot. And if worse comes to worse, it happens, you'll get it over with and get it done. And I wanted to know, it's so overwhelming that you have to go through that. Oh, I wanted to know, so how does the appeals process work, and when do you get to, like, if you appeal right away, and you need money to appeal, it is not free. We can't expect attorneys to work for free. Right now they are, and they are overwhelmed, and you have very few attorneys who are strong enough to do this, because you have to have balls of steel, and not many do. I'm sorry, your attorneys have balls of steel, and we need money. Y'all need money to appeal. And so if you give, it will come back to you. This is like giving unto the Lord, because this is your country, and we're standing up for conservative Christian values. So how does the appeal work, and when does that come into play?
So there's a thing called a Rule 29, right? And there's a 14 or 21 day deadline on that. So 14 to 21 days after my trial ended, my attorneys will be filing for a Rule 29 motion. And what that means is that we are asking the judge to overturn some of the guilty verdicts because of her knowledge of the law. For
Okay.
example, I'd proven that there's no way to know that I should not have been there. That one statute of trespassing has the word knowingly in its element. They have to prove that I knew that I should not have been there.
Right.
So we can ask her overturn that, because they did not, the jury doesn't know the minute details of the law. The judge does. Or like the officer that's said, I have no idea who that guy even is, that type of stuff.
Okay.
But if she does not grant me a Rule 29 on any of those charges, then once I'm sentenced, whatever it may be, I'm hoping probation would be great. House arrest would be a second best, because I'm the only breadwinner for my family, my wife, my 4 kids. Plus, I also take care of my father-in-law, who's on hospice. He has very deteriorating health and breathing problems. So we've been taking care of him for the last 7 years. It just keeps getting worse, but God is great. He provides. But after that, then we can start filing appeals. Unfortunately, appeals take like 2 years. So no matter what, we can try to appeal and get some of the stuff thrown out. So hopefully we can win a lot of this through the appeals process as well.
Right.
But I'm hopeful that no matter what happens, again, it's God's will, it's God's plan. I will take it with a smile on my face, accept it all with joy, and give credit where credit is due. Like I said, my judge scared the living crap out of me when I got into the courtroom, because she threatened to throw my attorneys in jail, but she turned around.
That.
Very quickly. She turned around. she actually scared me so much. When I first went into trial, I contacted, I'm a disabled veteran, or I got hurt in the military. And so I'm eligible for what's called an ADA advocate. It's for the Americans with Disabilities Act. And
Yes.
she stood up in court and put my judge on notice saying, I'm here to watch Mr. Thomas's trial. If I see any violations of his rights, I will be filing the proper complaints to the Supreme Court. And my
Oh,
judge addressed it, but basically said, listen, you can't speak in here anymore. Just sit there and watch, but you're not on his legal team. And I did that completely without my attorneys knowing. I informed them as I was walking into the courtroom that morning, like, hey, by the way, this is what I did to try to help protect my rights. And they looked at me wide eyed, like, why? Oh my goodness, why would you do that? And
yeah.
so the judge addressed it. My attorney said, listen, we support our client, whatever he decides, but this has nothing to do with us, because she already threatened to throw them in jail, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And I think it helped quite a bit. But I don't think that's the reason that the judge turned around, because she actually started to turn around before my ADA came in.
Yeah.
Because she didn't come in until like later on that afternoon. But that day she did make a change. And I think that's because she saw in some of the evidence that the government was just twisting it way out of proportion. They're trying to say that I was violent when really I'm just standing there stopping violence and trying to help people.
Yeah.
I was chanting "We back the blue." I was telling the cops who were up there fighting for their rights, etc. So, but that's really the crux of it. It's up to the judge. Whatever she decides, I'll accept it with a smile on my face. I gave it all to God, and I'm a man of my word because my God is a man of his.
Amen. And you just have your voice, you could just hear character. You have good character, you have integrity, and they have painted you as someone you're not. And I'm sorry that you've gone through this. I feel like, you're a hero. You're a hero and you're not what they say. And so the history books will tell the truth, and we'll make sure to keep getting the truth out there and keep praying for you, and just know that we're praying for you and your family. And everybody give to this man's GiveSendGo. And definitely, is there a certain, where do they need to send them singing the national anthem?
Honestly, you can post it anywhere you want on social media. Just use the hashtag of sing the number 4 freedom, and either myself or other members of the little groups that I have in like chat rooms and whatever, we all go out and we look for them and we find the videos and we spread them out and share them and just show the love of nation. You know, you can do it every single night if you want. You can do it just once, but anytime we see the Sing for Freedom tag, pop up on a social media trending line or whatever, we'll grab it and share it around. And the guys that are inside, they actually get a chance to see a lot of them, or their families will see them, and then they'll tell them on the phone, like, hey, I saw like 7 or 8 videos come in today. This, and they'll share it with them. And the folks that are locked up, they sing over the phone with a vigil that's outside the DC jail every night as well. And I've had the honor of being able to speak to a lot of the inmates in the jails, not just DC, but also Northern Neck, Rappahannock, Lewisburg, even other federal prisons across the country, Oklahoma, South Carolina, etc.
Yeah.
And every single one of them have thanked me, because my favorite was actually John Mellis. He's a rather, people know his name pretty much, but he's been locked up since like January 8th.
Oh.
He's been in there for 2 years, has never
Oh.
had a trial, hasn't even had a bond hearing yet.
Why?
And they were in solitary confinement for the whole first year that he was in jail. And they were lost, forgotten, isolated. Nobody was fighting for them. Nobody was talking about them. Nobody was reporting on them. They thought they had been completely forgotten. And then they heard that America was singing with them. And it changed the entire atmosphere in the jail. It gave them that motivation and that inspiration to just keep on pushing, to realize that they were not alone. And whenever I had a chance to interview him for my show, he broke down a little bit, and he thanked me so much for doing that. And I told him, I said, listen, you guys did it. You showed American patriotism in the face of some of the worst adversity. And you had that resolve to push through and just say, the Brandon administration ain't got nothing on we the people, because we're Americans, and it's going to stay that way. And so they did what they did. And all I did was take what they were doing and pushed it to the public and said, let's do the American thing.
Right.
If a city gets destroyed by a tornado, it's the cities around them that band together to put them back together. Well,
Right.
right now, that tornado has a name, and it's Joe Biden. And
Mhm.
we are up, it's up to us to help put those that are being destroyed back together. And
To
so, yeah,
heal
if
them
folks,
from the abuse. Yeah, I was listening to the Proud Boys after the Proud Boys trial. They were in the spaces and they were like, one of the guys was so inspirational. He said, "Do you," or a couple of them said the same thing. And these people have gone through untold horrors, imprisoned, and they got, accused of sedition, found guilty of sedition with evidence that's Lord knows what. I don't even, I'm just, ugh. Anyway, they've gone through a lot. And he's like, what do you want to say? And he said, I just want to tell America to keep standing up. Don't let this stop you from standing up. That was his main concern, is that because of this, basically saying it's not that bad, keep standing up. I mean, it's bad, but at the end of the day, he doesn't want the fear factor of what could happen like that to make you not stand up. And also, we are a lot more wise now, and you can be more careful about how you protest, and you can protest in ways, just be that voice that will not, polite. You can be polite about it. Make sure you stay away from agitators, but don't forget to speak out about your country and to support people, like you say, community coming together. Do something for J6ers today. Don't wait.
absolutely, the battlefield is not in the streets, right? I'll tell you from experience, the last protest I went to did not work out too well for us.
No.
The battlefield is in the courtroom. It's in the legislature. It's in the voice of the people. Our
Yeah.
voice has power. That's why they're constantly censoring us and trying to silence us on social media.
Right.
But go out and talk to your neighbors. You don't have to sound like a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. Just say, hey, Jim, some of this doesn't look too right. Start the conversation. Like, something's not right here.
Right.
And go to more than just one source. Don't go to just the mainstream. Look
Right.
at what other places are putting out. The Gateway Pundit, I got to give them a huge shout out.
Yes.
Kara Castronova,
Love
Alicia
her.
Patel, they
Yeah.
have been doing some amazing work and speaking up for J6ers and giving the
Thank you.
truth of their stories. They have actually they did a story on mine, on my story with January 6th, and it made my family break down in tears because it was one of the first news articles that they'd actually read there where I was not smeared into be some huge, horrible, violent terrorist. And they
Yes.
showed video to back up everything that they stated.
Wow.
So it isn't just a puff piece. Like, they showed proof that I was doing what I said I've been doing for the last 2 years at January 6th and the fight
Wow.
that I had to put up in court. So I certainly appreciate everything they've done, and my legal team, God bless them. If I could, whenever I sue the government, and I'm a multimillionaire after this stuff, because I am going to sue the pants off of everybody once this is all done and said with,
Don't
I'm
tell
gonna,
him yet.
yeah, I'm gonna buy my attorneys a yacht because they deserve it. And I'm struggling to pay what I can to them. I'm struggling to keep up this fight, but I'll sell a kidney if I have to. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
joking. I'll do anything I possibly can because I have to be here to survive for my family. If I go to prison, I'm going to be getting 3 hots in a cot, and my wife and kids are going to be homeless and hungry in the streets, and I won't be able to sleep at night knowing that.
No,
So,
they're
and
not. They can come move in with me. Bring them to Texas.
I don't know. You have a lot of nice stuff, and I have too many kids. I can't have nice things. They break it all. But
God will provide. God will
yeah,
provide. But you're right. I mean, those are worries. Those are concerns that are very real. But the neat thing is that we have a mighty God, and you would be surprised at who God brings to help in your hour of need. The attorneys you have are just, God, heaven sent angels.
that's
And
very true, actually. I made a phone call to a friend, and he's like, hey, how are you doing on your case? And I said, I'm about to fire my public defender because I caught him sabotaging my case. He's just a yes man for the prosecutor. I'm going to go pro se. I'm just going to go
wow,
defend myself. And he said, hold on, let me make a phone call. And then he conference called in John Pierce and his legal team. And they were like, yeah, we'll take you into your case. We'll fight for you. And he's an amazing attorney. He's represented Carter Page during the Russia collusion hoax. He's represented Rudy Giuliani. He was actually the one that got George Papadopoulos pardoned by Trump and
Kyle
Kyle.
Rittenhouse.
Yeah. And so he's an amazing guy. And he said, listen, I'm not cheap, but we'll work with you and you can pay it off like as you can, you
Yes.
know. And so I've done everything I possibly can, because they're not only defending me, they have over 33 other defendants that, and we're all broke. None of us have anything. They
No,
took
and they're
everything from us.
and he's like a Harvard grad. I mean, he's a hero.
Oh, absolutely amazing.
There's hero attorneys out there. And, you know, this is not a job for the weak-willed. When you're
No.
going up against this, you can't be politically correct. You have to be somebody who's not afraid of standing in the line of fire, because that's what they're doing. And that's how they're keeping us, or all the J6ers, from getting the best representation. As people are, you know, they don't want to rock the boat. They want to be seen as the good guys. And since the J6ers are seen as the bad guys, you know, but that is turning around little by little. The truth will come out. And I just really enjoyed our conversation. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
No, absolutely. I want to give a quick little shout out to a good friend of mine, Trennis Evans. He's the one that
Love him.
made that phone call for me to John Pierce, and
Yes.
God spoke to his heart, and he really helped me out in my time of need. And you know, I just ask that anybody listening to this, that you just don't do nothing. You
Yes.
know, in the great words of Edmund Burke, the only thing evil needs to succeed is for good men to do nothing. So just do something. You don't have to, you know, be a millionaire. You don't have to run for Senate. You don't have to run for any type of office or anything like that. Just get out, speak to your neighbors. Don't be silent. Don't believe the mainstream media's false narratives. Go look for yourself. And if any way that you can help, then great. If it's making phone calls, writing letters to the guys in the jail, whatever, prayer. Please pray for me, family. Pray for these guys that are in here. And
Money, sharing this video. Share this. This needs to go viral.
Absolutely. Share this video, get the information out, and just don't stop. Don't relent. Don't let them push you into a corner for fear, because any freedom that we give up today will be freedoms that our kids and grandkids will never know about. If you want to find ways to get involved and make it a solid effect, check out my website, sing4freedom.us. And you know, just keep on fighting. Don't give up, because this is just the beginning. They're coming after us now. Next, they're going to be coming after you.
And we are victorious in Christ Jesus. God wins. And in the name of Jesus, this evil will not stand, and we will win.
Amen. I actually thank God for the struggles that I've been through with this. Whenever I pray, I thank Him, because it gives glory to the victory that is going to be shown in the end of this. And it's going to be won in a way that people will realize that it was only God that can make this happen.
Amen.
Because this is a fight against the devil himself. We are not fighting against flesh and blood. It's against the powers of principalities. And my armor is strong because it's been tempered through fire. The Holy Bible is my code of conduct, and Jesus Christ is my King. And I go there with the sword of the Word of God, and I stand in His might.
Amen. And it's not by might nor by power, but by His Spirit, that you will win. And I believe that victory is yours. And I pray for your safekeeping and the safekeeping of your family. And do keep in touch. And we will see you again soon. And thank you so much, Joseph, for everything.
Well, thank you, ma'am. God bless.
God bless.